It is clear that Hitler's plan isn't just to regain territory.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at figures who had immeasurably negative effects on the world.
Leopold once said about his Congo, "What I do there is done as a Christian duty."
Kim Il-sung, installed as leader of North Korea by Joseph Stalin and the Soviets in 1948, Kim Il-sung wasted no time in establishing a culture of fear and intimidation.
For Kim, he was supposed to be the ruler of the entire Korean peninsula.
He targeted anyone perceived as a threat and created a totalitarian government centered around his supposed greatness. Seeking to reunify Korea by force, Kim invaded South Korea, thus sparking the Korean War, which saw approximately 2.5 million people killed.
The degree of ruthlessness of Kim Il-sung was quite extraordinary.
The failure to reunify did not deter Kim's furthering of his power, nor his regime's human rights abuses. He also created a caste system known as the Songbun, with those at the bottom deemed hostile. Kim ruled until his death in 1994, and his son and grandson have emulated his brutal reign.
Kim is believed to have executed at least 340 people since 2011, sometimes in brutal and excessive fashion.
Idi Amin, rising his way through the ranks of the King's African Rifles and the Uganda Army, Idi Amin eventually seized power in a coup.
It is not my intention to be a president, but it is the people who appointed me to be the president of the Republic of Uganda.
His presidency was defined by human rights abuses and targeting of political enemies. He also expelled thousands of South Asian people living in Uganda.
Will you have to leave because of what the president has said?
If he say I have to leave, what I can do?
Racked by paranoia that only grew with time, Amin's reign ended in 1979 following another coup. He fled, living in Libya, Iraq, and finally Saudi Arabia, dying in 2003. In 8 years, as many as 500,000 people are estimated to have been killed under Amin's reign.
He died with the quiet dignity that he denied so many of his victims.
Benito Mussolini. Fascism is intrinsically linked to Benito Mussolini, as it was a term he originated.
He was hugely ambitious. He was capable of crushing absolutely anyone.
Seizing power amidst instability in the wake of World War I, Mussolini used his skills of charisma and persuasion to create a one-party government driven by subjugation and his being likened to something of a demigod. The Black Shirts, his parliamentary organization, targeted socialists and other enemies of the fascist party.
If they did something against the regime in power, it's normal they were sent to prison.
In 1935, under his rule, Italy also invaded Ethiopia, leading to hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties. Allied with Germany during World War II, Mussolini's image as a strong leader fell significantly following an ill-fated invasion of Greece. In 1943, Mussolini was deposed and arrested.
The first dictator is knocked out, and Italy, even under martial law, cheers Il Duce's fall.
Then, in 1945, he was executed by a member of the Italian resistance movement, Genghis Khan. The extent of Genghis Khan's skill as a military leader and conqueror is incredible.
Mostly when we think of Genghis Khan, or Chinggis Khan as the Mongolians say, we think of a conqueror, a man on a horse.
But this also means he was absolutely ruthless in his quest to expand the Mongol Empire as far and wide as he possibly could. This means anyone who dared defy their conquest could be assured a swift end.
But they wiped out entire cities, along with their inhabitants.
There's no clear number of deaths under Khan's rule, but it's almost certainly in the millions. Though Khan displayed some positive traits as a leader, such as uniting divided tribes and emphasizing merit over lineage, the sheer amount of bloodshed enacted by Khan and his armies earns him a spot on this list.
His life was to become a legend. His name, Genghis Khan.
Osama Bin Laden. Even before he orchestrated the September 11th attacks, Osama bin Laden was notorious for causing violence and chaos around the world.
I was awake most of last night trying to figure this out. And I was asking myself, first of all, what's the point?
Born into wealth in Saudi Arabia, Bin Laden became radicalized as a militant during the Soviet-Afghan War. He formed the terror organization Al-Qaeda, launching attacks throughout the 90s. Then in 2001, he oversaw the deadliest terrorist attack in American history, killing 2,977 people and forever altering the course of the 21st century.
It's a war. We've been attacked. It's like World War II.
He was able to spend the decade in hiding before being found at a compound in Pakistan by U.S. military forces and killed in 2011.
It was nearly 10 years ago that a bright September day was darkened by the worst attack on the American people in our history.
Leopold II. Despite its name, the Congo Free State was anything but. It was actually an absolute monarchy, privately owned by Belgium's King Leopold II.
Until Adolf Hitler arrived on the scene, the European standard for cruelty was set by a king.
Though Leopold never actually set foot in the Central African nation, he still oversaw horrific atrocities. His force publique military subjected people to forced labor to extract resources and enacted brutal punishments for not meeting quotas or refusing to recognize their authority. Even then, the actions done in Leopold's name were regarded as crimes against humanity.
Kuya ya matupe mamakambo mingi mabe mabutami yanguana tolingi kuyoka kumbu na lisusu te.
The Congolese population is estimated to have dropped by about 10 million during his reign, or half the population. He was eventually forced to relinquish the Congo to Belgium and died in 1909 from an embolism, seeing no real consequences for the suffering he caused. Pol Pot. As leader of the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot had an immeasurable detrimental effect on Cambodia, which was known as Democratic Kampuchea under his reign.
This crazy man is still alive. This crazy man is still causing problems up to now.
Though he only ruled for 4 years, he left his citizens traumatized for generations. His most horrifying legacy was helping to orchestrate the Cambodian genocide, which saw the country's population reduced by nearly a quarter. His rule ended in 1979 when Vietnamese forces took over Cambodia. However, he saw no real consequences for being responsible for the deaths of millions. He continued his involvement with the Khmer Rouge until its collapse toward the end of the 1990s.
Pol was arrested by the head of the Khmer military, who had had enough of his murderous ways.
The 72-year-old Pol Pot was put under house arrest in 1997 before dying of a heart attack in April of the following year. Joseph Stalin. A key figure in the Russian Revolution, Joseph Stalin rose from a childhood of poverty in Georgia to become the ruler of the Soviet Union, gradually consolidating power over what was previously a collective government.
He craved power. He never could have enough power.
He implemented 5-year plans to fuel industrial growth by any means possible.
It was impossible to find what the production figures were because every director had to fake his figures. Because if you say you failed, you're out, so you might as well be caught a year later for faking.
His policy of taking over farms through collectivization resulted in a famine that saw the deaths of millions. Dissidents and enemies would be sent to the forced labor camps or executed outright. His paranoia furthered amidst the early years of the Cold War. However, he died following a stroke in 1953 at age 74.
Stalin, he called himself, meaning man of steel, but he is gone. And Russia's next moves are the burning questions of the hour, everywhere, around the globe.
Mao Zedong. Known as Chairman Mao, Mao Zedong founded the People's Republic of China in 1949, going to lengths like seizing land and targeting opponents.
I was totally pour my energy, even my life, into it to support whatever Mao asked me to do.
Like others on this list, Mao was able to see his ambitions through creating a cult of personality that made him revered throughout China. Though Mao has been credited for positive effects during his reign, such as increased rights for women, he was still a tyrant who persecuted dissidents through imprisonment, forced labor, and executions. His Great Leap Forward reforms resulted in a famine that killed tens of millions of people.
We have to understand that it wasn't simply that there was no food, it is much more that food was used as a weapon to punish people who wouldn't go along with whatever dictates local cadres had.
While Mao, who died in 1976 at age 82, remains largely revered in China, the consequences of his rule are too great to ignore.
Now is the Rega generation 70 I hope that they reflect, they regret, they re-examine what should we prevent this kind of human tragedy happen again.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Adolf Hitler, exploiting people's fears amidst the Great Depression. Adolf Hitler went from an imprisoned radical to dictator of Germany in just over a decade.
What they need most of all is a sense of unity and a sense of economic security.
As leader of the Nazi Party, Hitler blamed minority groups for the ills of society, stoking bigotries such as anti-Semitism. Jewish citizens were deprived of citizenship and forced to live in the ghettos, where they were terrorized.
When I first found myself back here, I began looking obsessively for the hole through which my mum and I had escaped.
Millions more were killed at concentration camps. 2/3 of the European Jewish population was killed in the Holocaust, considered the single biggest genocide of all time.
Wir könnten sehen auf eigene Augen, was der Mensch überhaupt bedeutet.
Facing defeat in the final days of World War II, Hitler took his own life on April 30th, 1945. Did we miss anyone who altered history for the worse? Let us know in the comments.
If Stalin were to remain a god, he'd have to make sure no one threatened his rule.